Everyone, welcome back to Manufacturing Hub. It's a beautiful Wednesday afternoon here. We've got significantly less ice than we've had before, so hopefully it is a beautiful Wednesday afternoon. If you guys are watching this live, or if it's a beautiful time in the hopefully early spring, if you guys are listening on recorded form. Vlad and I are super excited to come to the conclusion of our technology modernization theme that we've been running all month long. We started with Vlad and I talking about some of how do we take the executive vision and go build that out into a path to go deploy on the manufacturing floor. We brought Benson on in order to go talk about the hardware side. We had David of Respion last week going and talking about taking that and going and building the data structures and how we go ahead and kind of continue to climb that ladder. And this week, we're super happy to have Brian and Louis on, who we'll introduce in just a moment. Go share some of the successes that they've had on the Siemens XD team. Go talk about a lot of building manufacturing into the future. So if you guys are new here, welcome. If you've been here before, welcome back. If you guys are new here, and especially if you're following Brian and Louis in, we love to have conversations. If you guys have questions for Brian or Louis or Vlad or myself, feel free to go ahead and ask. There's only like one or two of you that we've agreed we probably can't answer any of your questions, and so we probably won't read them live on air. Having said that, guys, please feel free to go ahead and ask away about Siemens technologies, any technologies along those ways. I do want to make a note, if you guys are watching, because you're interested in some of the Prove It content coming out, Vlad and I have got a full Prove It schedule coming out next week. We'll have live with Colby Clegg, the CEO of Inductive Automation, on Monday. And then on Friday, we'll have Walker, who's going to come in and go talk with us on the podcast. And then Wednesday, I think Vlad and I are going to go talk about all of our experiences at Prove It, emceeing and otherwise, if we have any bit of a voice. And I also think Brian is going to be there at some point. So if you see that smiling face, feel free to go ahead and say hi to Brian. We do want to thank Siemens for sponsoring this episode and for all of the support of Manufacturing Hub throughout the entire 6 years of our history. Having said that, and without further ado, everyone, officially welcome to Manufacturing Hub. This is episode 246. My name is Dave. This guy up here is Vlad, and we'd like to welcome our guests, Brian and Louis from the Siemens XD team on. Brian, Louis, thank you guys so much for being here. Welcome.
Thank you.
Brian and Louis, thank you so much for joining us today. Before we pepper you with questions about the industry, could you give us a bit of an introduction about yourselves, your career, what you do today, and ultimately what got you into manufacturing as well? Let's start with Brian.
Yeah, Louis, did you want to go first? Or you want me to go first? Or?
Go ahead. Absolutely.
Okay. Yeah. So, Brian Albrecht here. Happy to join and discuss this with you guys. I would say, my career started in electrical engineering. That's kind of where my background was. I quickly joined a service integrator company in Oklahoma City. And we mainly focused on oil and gas industry. And, I quickly picked up SCADA, networking, automation controls, you name it. We were trying to do that in the oil field at the time, and worked with that company for, about 10 years. I ran that company for several years. And that was a great place for me to just learn all the different things between IT, OT, kind of building up solutions, packaging all of them together. And so that kind of is what spurred me to want to work for Siemens, is, having all these products where I can build solutions together and going out in front of customers and showing them the value of what we can add there. And so that's kind of what brought me here. That's what I enjoy. I really enjoy the operations side of this, building up teams and building up relationships with customers.
Awesome. Louis?
Yeah. So I've been in manufacturing for roughly 20 years. I actually started my career out in manufacturing for the most part. Did a short stint with the help desk, taking people's problems in and then trying to help them solve their day-to-day stuff. So that was I've come a long ways from that point in my career. I spent my first few years as a software developer, developing manufacturing and engineering applications. Moved into more of a working for a manufacturing company, and then I got an opportunity with Siemens and moved more into a solution architecture role. Spent some years on the services side of the business, deploying our digital manufacturing solutions with customers. And then I kind of slowly drifted closer and closer to sales. I moved into some pre-sales consulting roles. Worked at and managed some of our experience centers, one particularly out in California around electronics. And then, a lot of that work was on the Siemens Digital Industries software side of the business, where it's more focused on, CAD, PLM, MES type of solutions and integrating all of those. And then I moved over to the automation side, and I've been working. Started out as a principal architect, and then moved into my current role leading our smart manufacturing team, and really kind of bringing that software perspective into the automation space. Many of our solutions that we look at with customers are highly focused around leveraging software solutions in automation. And then kind of to echo what Brian said, my passion is more about the people than the technology. I really love to build teams, work with the customers, help them solve their problems. That's generally my primary focus. So.
Let me ask both of you a follow-up question, right? So,
Mm,
Brian, you've mentioned starting off in the oil and gas industry, and
mhm.
I'm assuming, and I guess it's also part of the question, that now you service a much broader spectrum of customers. And I guess I'm curious to hear maybe your perspective when it comes to industrial automation as it applies to these different verticals, right? Because again, there's oil and gas, there's automotive, there's energy, and to my at least opinion, they are quite diverse. So I'm curious, how the transition has been and what your general overview of that landscape is today.
Yeah, me and one of my buddies that you guys know very well, we talk about this quite often. Is we would hire anybody in the oil and gas field because we know we tend to joke around about having a get it done crew and having people that just kind of have foundational skill sets that understand how to build a solution, how to get something done. That's all we're really looking for, I should say. And so when we go into those other markets, we're really just kind of having a broad enough view to say, okay, this kind of looks similar to something that we would see in our past experience. And it doesn't scare us away. It just makes us have to dig in a little deeper. And so there is a lot of industries that are, just quite a bit different. But I would say that doesn't scare us away. It just makes us want to learn more about that industry specifically. But yeah, that for me. That's always just a character thing. Looking for people and who to invest into those customers is like who's willing to go figure this out with them.
Makes sense. Lewis, any thoughts on that side?
Yeah, I mean, I've worked across a lot of different industries in discrete and process. A kind of similar thing is, we're really looking for people that can get the job done versus, having endless discussions around theories and how we should and shouldn't do it. I want people that can figure out how to execute. But there is quite a bit of diversity when you look at discrete industries like aerospace, automotive, heavy equipment versus the automation systems that are in the process industries like food and bev and pharmaceutical and other industries. So I've kind of worked across both throughout my career, and it's a different mindset, not just from the business, but from their leadership and how you approach those customers.
Interesting. I'd have a lot more, again, like questions on the industries, but I do want to take maybe a step back and ask a broader question, right? Again, I think that our general industry, and when I say general industry, manufacturing, industrial automation, is to an extent fragmented, right? There's going to be companies that are at the cutting or bleeding edge, perhaps, with their technology stack and are looking into AI and MCPs, and we'll get into all of that. But I would argue that a lot of them are still quite far behind being able to leverage some of those tools. So, what is your perspective on where manufacturing, and I would say where our executives currently are looking to invest and maybe stay current with, outside of, I would say for now, AI? I'm assuming that's a huge component of the request, but what else are they looking at in manufacturing?
Yeah.
From the executive perspective, we see, a couple common requests. They come in and they ask about, can you help us map out our factory of the future, right? How are we going to build our upcoming greenfields, our new lines? And it's kind of a broad request because there's not a specific business problem that you're trying to solve. It's more a visioning activity, where you're trying to show them, the art of the possible, what they can do given enough funding and
Mhm.
business behind it. Um, that's a key piece. The other piece that we'll often get a request around is, how to deal with their manufacturing data, and it ties into the AI piece. And I won't touch on that too much, but how do they get all these silos of data that they have, in their manufacturing operations, so they can get good insights out of them and start to move towards more automation or more intelligent automation.
Mhm.
um, I can't ignore the AI request, because that's a that's a very common one. Like, can you guys show us, what kind of AI solutions that you have, and that integrates into the factory of the future, and how they're trying to solve their data problems, right? Or get more value out of the data that they currently have.
Interesting. Mhm.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, if I can add to that, I think one of the things that I see the most, that my team probably works on the most, is data transparency across, plant, factory, cloud layers, and then just reduction in cost of operations. And so I see executives wanting kind of a single point of truth from plant floor to MES to cloud. And we have that AI conversation with most customers, but where we have to steer them is back to, let's get the data house in order, let's get the automation house in order, just to be able to begin that conversation.
Right.
Interesting. I read a lot of financial information that companies publish, and I know that there's quite a bit going into reshoring, per se. So I guess I'm curious if you can make any comments on, the brownfield versus greenfield situation. Obviously, there's a lot of data centers coming up, and I think those are going to be brand new facilities. But for me,
Yeah.
at least, talking to customers, a lot of them are just trying to optimize their existing operations. It could be bringing new lines right into existing facilities, but I've not.
Right.
Again, I've heard of the financials, but I've not seen many of those factories being built yet.
Yeah. Most of the opportunities that our teams work on are brownfield opportunities.
Mm,
And but it still kind of runs on the same themes. Like, what, for the AI piece, when we get these requests, there's often a theme of they don't know how to apply AI to their business and operations, but they know they need to figure it out, right? And the challenge there is that it's kind of, in some ways, the way I see it is they don't want to be left behind. They feel like if they don't figure out this AI application and this technology to their business, by the time AI applications come out that are more plug and play and a lot easier to apply to the business, they're already going to be behind, right? So
mhm,
so in the brownfield space, we're really seeing where they're trying to make that jump. How do we take these legacy systems, apply solutions like AI, or just traditional analytics solutions to get more value out of that part of the business, right? And drive more throughput, higher product quality, things of that nature. But they want to make that technological jump, even if it's not a new greenfield, right?
Mhm.
Yeah. We actually have a couple customers that we've worked on this with over 2025, where it's a brownfield, and they want us to work in a brownfield environment in order to get standardized for the greenfields. And
Okay.
so, they still want to have their brownfield environment, but they want that standardized with their greenfields. And so, getting that all connected on one platform, those are things that we've worked with customers on this last year, and we've had a lot of success in that.
Interesting. I think, Brian, you made the point. I thought it was an interesting point about how executives are coming in with the want or the leading request or pain points are industrial AI, and to both of your points, not being left behind. But there is still a lot of Industry 3 or Industry 4 work that needs to be done before you get to that industrial AI. Take us through those conversations. So we want to get to industrial AI. We don't have enough information to get there. Are we looking at going and building those foundational building blocks of Industry 3 and Industry 4? Or are we putting in point sensors and doing our best to jump ahead to industrial AI Industry 5? And we'll kind of figure the rest out as we get deeper into the rest of our journey.
Yeah, a lot of the time it just starts by listening to them of what they're actually asking for, and then Lewis's team here is the team that is kind of in front of my team, and so his team will do a vision setting workshop, and that's where we can start kind of putting the ideas together. And then once we actually get in with the customer and are able to see their environment, then we're actually able to see what we can actually do. And okay, how far are we actually behind here? And so really just kind of targeting what we need to hit at first, just to kind of make those initial steps with them. And so we always want to meet the customer where they are at in their current environment. We don't want to just blow that out of the water and say, hey, here's this grand solution, let's go install this. All right. But we want to see how some of our tools can provide value in small sections, and then start implementing that full stack solution for them in whatever that looks like.
Yeah, I mean, in some regards, when we're doing the opportunity development, they have these requests around AI or kind of future outlooks of what they want to do. We're really trying to work with them to figure out, identify what the business challenges are, how we can prioritize those, and then translate those into use cases, and then into solutions that we would look at implementing. So it's really a conversation, around getting to what the problems are that they're trying to solve, right? Just throwing a solution at something without really understanding that, typically doesn't go very far, right? You don't get very far in the opportunity and the relationship with the customer, right? When you're working with them and you can start to get into the nuts and bolts of their business processes and where the gaps are, and kind of help them figure out where there's different challenges that they're trying to solve, then the conversation becomes a lot more clear. And when we start to get into looking at solutions that help solve those challenges, it's a lot better conversation, and it tends to go forward, right? That's kind of the key.
Let me ask you maybe a more slightly tactical question, right? So for the
Right.
audience, as we maybe like define and put some constraints on industrial AI, what kind of applications do you, I guess, like currently see, right? So Dave and I went to Automate 2025 last year, and we had the opportunity to see basically the implementation of the NVIDIA GPUs for like a pick and place application. But what are some of the general, again, use cases for AI in current conversations?
I can highlight a couple of them. There's definitely a lot of excitement around LLMs and how to apply that, and that typically comes out of challenges around workforce, whether it's skill or aging workforce. How do we take this tribal knowledge and make it accessible, right? So they don't have to go flip through a huge manual or try to find some documentation that's buried somewhere. That's a typical request, and then of course they want to get some type of insights out of that, right?
Mhm.
That's helping them, solve downtime. Downtime is a big one. How do we solve unplanned downtime quicker? Um, Basically keep the manufacturing operations up and running.
Mhm.
There's other requests where they want to look at applying AI to improving throughput and yield, which is a typical one. Whether you do that through different AI models or applications, or you try to use LLMs to help solve that problem. Those are some of the discussions that we're having today, and then there's other more, I would say, direct and mature AI applications where you're doing AI vision applications, close to the machine on the edge, or you're doing like anomaly detection, things like that are much more direct on how you can apply that to their business.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, Lewis, I think you kind of touched on a lot of the things that we're working on. I would highlight, AI vision is fairly popular across multiple verticals. What is that? How does that used with robotics? How is that used on a line to realign products? How is that used to capture images and find problems with the product and fix those things? But then also, kind of on the other side of things, is how is a factory using AI? Not necessarily in those edge cases, but how are we using AI to help us, with downtime? Is it helping us fix our machines quicker? Is it helping us consolidate all of our documentation around machines so that when I see an error code come up, it tells me how to fix that right away? Things like that we've seen. And so we kind of see AI in a lot of different ways. But that always points us back to, okay, where's the value right now? How can we start scaling that up for the customer so we're not starting on the wrong end of things? I think for my team, we tend to want to start on the lower layers, automation, factory layer, and get those things organized so that when you do want to have an LLM on top of that, we have all the houses in order.
And that's the difficult question, right? So I've also been in a couple of conversations where it's a very, how would I say it, high level question as to what should we do to be more AI ready or more AI enabled. And I think that as you start peeling back the metaphorical onion, you very quickly realize there's so many silos, and we just need to establish maybe a baseline. What does your, I guess I'm assuming there is some kind of a framework to maybe the first point of an ROI to be able to see from some of these tools. How ready are manufacturers to implement a solution? And I guess like what does it take to get there in a broader sense, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I guess we'll start with how does it look right now? I would say as we kind of opened up with this conversation, there's a lot of industries that are completely ready for this. They have their houses in order and they're ready to take that to the next step, and they're already playing around with LLMs and connecting that to our tools and seeing how that works together.
Mm.
But then we have some that are still trying to get their controls in order, and getting their networks in order. And so it's on a very low level basis where we're trying to fix that for them. And then so for us, how we would orchestrate that is we would want to contextualize the data kind of on the edge, and then orchestrate that data for them, and using something like CCOA, and then distributing that out to where they want that data. And so that's kind of our focus for our team this year is trying to show value in that. And I think where that comes into play is where we show value is just giving customers the confidence that they have help in this area, that they don't have to do this alone, and we're going to be willing to train them in these areas so that they can be building up their teams to manage that and maintain it. And so yeah, for me, there's value in a lot of areas. Return on investment that comes, basis customer by customer. It's hard to say exactly where you're going to get that ROI for each one.
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, I appreciate that, Brian. And Louis, let me maybe set you up for the next question. Brian had brought up that really interesting comment about different levels of AI and AI orchestration. When you're going in and starting to have conversations with customers on the front end, Louis, are you starting to think about these are the different levels of AI and this is how we're going to orchestrate this? Or are you mostly kind of going and collecting requirements and coming up with some initial ideas, then passing them off to Brian's team to go put together into a more, I'm just going to call it a complete orchestration. I don't know if those are terms you guys would use, but
Right.
those are the terms I'm going to use.
That's a good question. I think so. When we work with customers, we're trying to figure out where the problem area is, and there's AI down at the machine level, the plant level, cloud level, and we're trying to look at what we can propose or prescriptively go down a path with the customer that makes most sense for what we're trying to achieve. With different engagements, sometimes it's very direct. It's kind of a concept of fast and slow AI, where you're looking at fast AI that needs to happen during the production process, right? Versus respond and give insights after the fact. I think a lot of times customers kind of blend those two together, and really trying to work with them on, how do we leverage AI to impact the machine and the process, quality and stuff like that. And then also have the higher level AIs, give you insights on what's happening down at the line and the machine layers. Ideally we want to implement both and then orchestrate that. I think the reality is with customers, it's a journey, right? It's not we're not going to jump to an environment with multiple AIs working together cohesively, right? They tend to need to start in one space, whether it's an AI application at the machine level, or they want to use AI for insights on all of their manufacturing data. So it's really a step-by-step process. Now, when we look at this with customers, we look at the roadmap, and we're trying to think a few steps or phases ahead to where, okay, we're going to start here, but we want to take you to this point where we have multiple solutions, whether it's AI solutions or just traditional solutions. And I think that the reality of it is, when Brian was talking about, you're looking at their data at the line and plant level, how that data is integrated. It's in different silos. Some of it's connected well, some of it's put in data lakes. It's kind of all over the place, and you really got to get that house in order before we can take those next steps. And kind of your biggest initial bang for your buck is really getting that data into a cohesive model that you can then start to use leverage AI against it, right? Because we'll see a lot of customers that will have data lakes, cloud solutions, and then they try to apply an LLM to it, and they're not getting what they think they should be getting out of it, right? And Brian's team will take a lot of that data, put it into proper structures, whether in plant structures where there's the right types of relationships, to where we can then start getting something out of that. So I don't know if that answered your question, but it's kind of a stepwise process to get them from A to B to C.
Yeah, I wanted to also say, we've had conversations with customers where AI wasn't even in the conversation. And it was really just all about simulation and
Mhm.
how we helped them
Oh,
there. And then once we completed a simulation project, that kind of opened the doors for them. They all of a sudden they have kind of a visual of their line or of their product or of their machines, and now they're starting to wonder, okay, how can I start to use this with AI? And so we have certain projects that kind of lead us there without even having that initial conversation of AI.
yeah.
Absolutely. I appreciate that. I want to dig into one of those a little bit more. Louis, you had made the comment of fast versus slow AI. And
Right.
I like that. I think it makes a lot of sense of production AI versus post production AI or outside of production
Yeah.
AI. And the value or the necessity to decouple multiple sets of AI, right? The one AI is difficult. Going and putting and running 3 or 4 AI one into each other into the next is going to be probably much more difficult in order to get valuable insight. Can we talk a little bit more about fast versus slow AI and how you guys define those and maybe what some of those applications may look like, please?
Yeah, I can give you an example of a solution that we're working on right now. So, in the pharmaceutical industry, we're looking at doing batch analysis, and we're leveraging batch analysis solution that has AI integrated into it. To help figure out what the optimal set points are, and then we're leveraging an LLM to analyze that data and then provide the recommendations, or if possible, set the machines in an automated fashion. All right. So we can leverage multiple AI solutions in the same overall system, to get an output of value for the customer. So and that's kind of where we're looking at these more fast AI solutions that are typically running from our perspective, ideally running on an edge, on your edge infrastructure, interacting with the machine. And then we have slower AI solutions that are doing the post analytics, kind of as you phrased it, but still adding additional insights and recommendations from the data that you're getting from the batch analysis.
Interesting. If I may ask maybe a complex question on that side, right? So
Oh,
what is it? So you mentioned edge solutions versus potentially offloading that into the cloud and a different maybe analytical algorithm. What does it take for someone to build out an architecture like that? Are we talking about again like GPUs on a local server? Are we talking about quite a heavy I guess like CPU workload at that facility? What does it
yeah.
like in practice look like?
Do you want to take that one, Brian?
Yeah, I mean, I can try to answer all of that. Yeah, so I mean, what that looks like is, for us, that would be our main focus, which would be our IAOL solution, which is industrial edge, on the edge with machines. So having an edge device talking to machines, and then having that contextualize the data and sending that to uh, our WinCCOA platform. And so having WinCCOA orchestrate that data, and WinCCOA is great at having all types of connectors for it, and so that's kind of the benefit of having WinCCOA. You could have it running as your SCADA, you could have it running it just as your connector piece. But what we want, especially in WinCCOA, is having it be the database, the event hub, and being able to distribute out that data to your MES or your cloud platforms that you have that may be running AI up there as well. And so, really just getting all that data collected and, I keep saying orchestrated. I don't know a better term to say that, because I mean that's what it's doing for the customer. But in my area, is we're really just kind of focused on that. Let's get that set up first, and then see
Yeah.
what AI you want to use. I think a lot of customers are still trying to see where they find value in that. Is that up in the cloud, or is that mainly on the edge, or is it mainly right there in WinCCOA using Smart SCADA, or you just using Copilot locally? I don't know if it always has to go to the cloud, but those are things that as a team we're actively discussing and trying to figure out, what is the best solution for the customer here? Does it make sense for this to go all the way up and then come back down? Is latency an issue? And those are things that we're always looking at, trying to figure out, what is the right solution? We don't want to just sell a product. We want to sell solutions, and we'll keep saying that because that's what's important to us.
Yeah, maybe just a little bit to add to that before we move on is with our plant level solutions like WinCCOA, the customer can bring their own LLM, so we can connect the LLM to WinCCOA as the data source. So the data is it's not like we're moving it to a cloud and a data lake, and then there has to be analysis out there and it comes back down, right? So kind of this concept of customer bringing their own LLM of choice that maybe is blessed by the IT side of their business, or within Siemens itself, we have manufacturing LLM solutions that we can plug into OA as well to analyze that data. All right, so really using the data where it needs to be used versus moving it. Is there really a need to move it to the cloud, and then what's the reason and why, or can we work on the data where it lives?
Let me ask a follow-up to both of those statements, as this question often comes up in AI conversations, and I'm assuming this is the case, but just want to confirm that the data stays obviously private on the on-prem side, and you're not plugging into just the public LLMs, and same like in the cloud, you're basically creating your own isolated environment. And I guess two-part question: are there any other concerns that executives like bring up as these conversations maybe begin right in the early stages?
It varies by industry, right? So if you're in more highly regulated industries like pharmaceutical, or in the defense side of aerospace and defense, not having they really don't want the data to leave on premise, right? They certainly don't want to put it in a public cloud. Anything would have to be private or something they own and manage. So those discussions are definitely front and center early on. In other industries, like food and bev, it's not as much of a concern. I mean, it still is a discussion, right? They need to understand, is this going in a Siemens owned and managed cloud? Can we manage it in our cloud in environments? So yeah, those are definitely very important discussions that it needs to be very clear on where that data is going, right? Is it staying in a cloud that's in the continental US, or is it going to a cloud that's overseas? Those are all important discussions.
Yeah, I would say from what I'm seeing is most of that is staying local, where the data orchestration can go across environments, but how AI is used, that's basically on a local level.
Yeah, that's the general preference, is they want to figure out how to keep it local. If they have to go to a cloud solution to leverage that technology right now, some customers are willing to do that. Some are not. So it's how much risk they're willing to, how much perceived risk they're willing to take right now to leverage that technology.
And it kind of also depends on what they're actually wanting. If they're wanting some type of operational view, where that's where we start looking into latency, that may not make sense, because we're talking about going from one piece of software to another, and if we're wanting a realistic view, is that minutes away, or is that seconds away? And so I think in my past, a lot of people were asking for a real-time view of their operations. How do we show them that? I mean, the only thing that makes sense is a local view of that if you're looking for real time, right? And so and that's where we really start asking the customer, what do you actually need? Does this actually need to be real time, or is 100 milliseconds fast enough, or is 1 second fast enough, 5 seconds? I'm sure you guys have seen that, but really trying to understand that time frame of when they need it, and that's when we can figure out the setup from there.
Yeah, and it's super interesting. I'll make a very brief comment before I pass it to Dave, right? But it's interesting to hear that at least on the consumer side, AI is predominantly in the cloud, and a lot of the data just gets exposed. Whereas our industry is a lot more regulated, and of course, obviously, a lot more on the defense and the pharma side than some of the other cases. But I still, at least personally, do not see most, at least even I would say large manufacturers, but small to medium have enough of an IT presence to be able to stand up their own infrastructure and proper servers and what have you to just run these pilots very quickly, right? But again, obviously, I haven't seen your projects, but I know it is not an easy undertaking for many manufacturers. So I'm very curious to see how it goes, and again, where the balance perhaps shifts. Is it a model of always on prem? Is it a model of in the public cloud, I guess, the larger clouds, or obviously you can also deploy servers in smaller type of data centers that are more private. But anyways, it's an interesting point for sure. Dave?
Absolutely. No, I would agree with that. And I do want to get back to the cybersecurity conversation of public versus local and where we think it may go in the future. But first, we need to thank some folks. We want to thank Siemens for sponsoring this episode. They've been longtime sponsors of Manufacturing Hub, and we really appreciate all of the support over the last 6 years. A couple of notes. If you guys are going to be at Prove It next week, absolutely go ahead and check out the Siemens booth. I know WinCCOA will be there. I think Caleb Eastman is going to be there. Caleb may or may not be listening to this conversation, upset that we are completely misunderstanding some of these relatively basic concepts. But no, Caleb will be there. He and Sofian last year had an absolutely fantastic presentation with WinCCOA, specifically in relation to the orchestration side. And while I haven't seen it, I would in fact be surprised if they were not going towards that golden batch on the pharmaceutical side for at least part of the presentation that we have to expect from them. So again, thank you to Siemens for sponsoring this. Come visit them next week, and you guys will hear a little bit more from Brian and Louis. Maybe go check out the Siemens XD team into the future for some potential opportunities for some of these interesting projects. Having said that, I want to go talk a little bit about the cybersecurity side, right? So as I dive into the AI side, I find it really interesting, right? Because there's the path of potentially some of the open to the public, OpenAI or Claude or some of the Chinese DeepSeek and other models to be able to go ahead and use. I believe Siemens is in the process of building their own LLMs. I would imagine that is a never-ending process. That they will continue to build and train those LLMs until there is no more building and training to possibly do, because we moved on to whatever is post-AI world. Having said that, I've had several conversations where we looked at OpenAI and ChatGPT, and like the enterprise side of those solutions have SOC 2 compliance. And SOC 2 compliance is generally about as high as one gets, as long as you trust that these groups are not actually going to go expose your data. So without exposing any of the necessarily conversations you guys are having, I'd love to know a little bit more about what those conversations look like. Is it just, hey, we want to keep the data local to keep it local? Is it we're waiting for some of these other models to be able to go run within our own containers on our own cloud, not touching the rest of the internet because we're worried about our data potentially leaking? What do those conversations look like, Brian?
Yeah, I mean, for the most part, a lot of those conversations for our customers are done internally. We're not having to have we kind of just give requirements of what we need, and then their teams kind of set that up for us. And so when we do that, we do have to do some workarounds because there may be 7 firewalls that we have to work through, and that doesn't always work out well. And so, so when we run into things like that, there is some negotiating, I would say, with customers on what makes sense for them. Do you want us to go through there and make this a slow process, or is there a way that we can build this out to where you trust the solution and it's not going to be leaking out any of your data and you have no concerns with that? But that's more of a conversation with the customer and just negotiating that out.
Cool. Yeah, maybe a little different perspective. You kind of touched on it, Dave. A lot of it's about trust, and then legacy IT, cybersecurity type policies where maybe the technology is a little bit ahead of their policies. So it tends to be a negotiation of can the solution meet your current requirements and expectations. Sometimes you might need to get an exception, when we do the security review boards and things like that. But I think I think we're still in the trust level of, okay, can they do customers trust this technology? Some are more forward thinking, forward leaning, and they do. I think in some regards, it's a lot less about where the security of the technology is, but what their perception of it is. And I think that's important to take into account.
Speaking of trust, then I would say managing customer expectations, right? I think it's
Yeah.
no surprise that the general sentiment with AI is that there will be some level of hallucinations, right? And I think that we all at this point understand that that's just the reality we live with. So I'm curious, as you're having these discussions, are there specific maybe like ways that you communicate that to the customers? Are there ways to mitigate that? Because again, I think in heavily regulated industries in manufacturing, it is an important topic to discuss, and again, just educate perhaps maybe the customer in the early stages what can be expected, how to mitigate it, and just the general state of what's possible.
Ooh, that's an interesting area of discussion. I mean, um, you know, in the LLM space, you're going to get more hallucinations versus targeted AI applications that are
Mhm.
very specific. When we have those discussions, we try to set some expectations. Customers tend to look at these at this point as recommendations they're getting, right? So things that point them in a direction that they can make a good decision. Um, I don't think there's full trust in the LLM space quite yet, especially in manufacturing. They're kind of, they want to see if these things are providing the right answers. We've worked with customers where it's, they, in their mind, they want to see the answer right 100% of the time, and
Mhm.
that's not a, it's not a proper expectation, at least at this point, right?
Mhm.
And it all comes down to the data it's working on. If you got junk data, um, or old data or whatnot, that sometimes you're not going to get the right answer. And I think that's a lot of the stuff Brian's team does, is working on getting this into a data model where we can improve the output of the AI solutions, right? And putting the
Mhm.
right guardrails around those solutions.
Mhm. Yeah, we have a real world example of that with the customer. We thought that we were getting data that just didn't make sense, and we were really questioning, like, where is this coming from, and is it the product that's actually doing this, or is there something wrong in the data? And so really just digging deeper, it was actually, I mean, the data was just tagged wrong. It took a while to figure that out, but yeah, that's why it's good to have that trust with the customer, so they're not just completely losing trust of the product, but we walk them through that and say, okay, we're going to figure this out with you. And then we can show them right there in their own environment, hey, we're pretty sure it's this because it's coming directly from whatever you have that tagged at right now. So yeah, so we see that, and that's why it is important for us to continually build up that trust with the customer and really prove out what we're saying and saying, if we're going to work with you through this process, actually showing them that we're going to do that. And so it's not just like, oh, we don't know, we're going to walk away from this, but we're not with them.
Right. And we've looked at a project with a customer where they want to do solutions like closed loop controls, but before they're ready to go to full an AI, making changes to the machine, they want to start at the recommendation state. Let's have it give recommendations first, and then we'll build some trust in that these are right. And then once that trust level gets high enough, then we can go to letting it do it in an automated fashion, right? I think that's kind of broad in the industry right now. Is how do we make that leap from what we think we're getting to confidence that we're okay applying this stuff without a human in the loop, right? And a lot of the times there's still a human in the loop.
Interesting. I guess I have many images. I would say when you mention full closed loop control using AI, I'm assuming that some of those projects are under R&D, so I'm not going to ask further questions on that side.
Yeah.
It is super interesting, right? Because again, I think that traditional control systems have been relying on, I would say, very, I guess, like human established PID control loops. And I think for us as, again, programmers, it's difficult to create an entire picture of the entire process that you can then program with multiple variables, right? But for AI, it is a lot more attainable. So I'm curious to see where that's going to go. We're going to have to probably bring you on as that project perhaps closes, or there's some kind of a white paper published on how that's actually done. Because again, I would be very curious to see something like that in a practical sense.
Okay.
I guess let me jump in and piggyback off of that, if you don't mind, Vlad. On the closed loop control side, and I understand it's probably as much theoretical as anything else. I've seen people kind of go down that process in what I would just call like regression analysis. I've seen people go down that process in machine learning. Are you? And I guess the reason I bring it up is because are you seeing lots of groups use AI as a general bucket for advanced analytics and anything beyond advanced analytics? Or are you guys seeing groups who are able to go kind of articulate the difference between any of these topics, machine learning, artificial intelligence, etc.?
Yeah, I would say for the most part, it's really just analytics that they're looking for. I mean, that's the general consensus for among customers. We do have our outliers that they're talking to multiple manufacturers and kind of building up this idea of what they could do with AI. And so especially when we kind of get into the simulation world, what can we actually start doing with that, and how can we tie this all together, and how can we wear VR glasses and start building models with our robotics and stuff like that. And so we do get into some pretty fun ideas and getting to test that with customers. But I would say for the most part, it's more about analytics and problem solving.
Absolutely. No, I appreciate that. Vlad, we've got the opportunity to ask these guys one last questions before we ask our wrap-up questions. What do you have for them?
Let me ask you, I guess, the final question when it comes to, again, business strategy as it pertains to AI. And I know we've talked throughout this hour about this maybe smaller type of a project where we're trying to validate a certain solution for a specific problem. I think that there's also an argument to be made for customers that may have fallen so far behind that simply need to like buckle down for the next 2 to 5 years and just, as you've mentioned, Brian, get their house in order. So I'm curious, how do you manage this maybe CapEx versus OpEx type of a strategy? And what do you see, again, executives discuss and ask you on that front?
I think for the most part, they're just wanting help, and so they're wanting to know where to start. And so
Mhm.
we may have those initial vision setting conversations with Lewis's team and the customer, and it may be too much of a push for them, and that's
Mhm.
like what you said is they're just going to have to kind of buckle down and but what we want to help customers in is having confidence in at least taking a step forward to seeing what value that could create them. I don't think you need to have a grand solution right away to have a little bit of value, but building up value over time will allow that customer to kind of see the vision and start feeling it in real time with in their own environments. And so that's where we really want to help them is just kind of being those thought leaders. You've mentioned Caleb Eastman. He's one of our top thought leaders for our team. And so going out and kind of vision setting with them and showing them, okay, I see what you have here in your environment. You could be here. If you don't take these initial steps, this could be a 3-year plan for you. Or we could see, areas where we can just fill a gap fairly easy and provide value pretty quickly.
Mhm. Interesting. Lewis?
Okay, sorry, I think I lost you guys there for a moment, but I'm back now. Um, looking at the customers and trying to figure out where to drive the investments, I think is kind of the question that comes up in that space. Um, whether it's in automation solutions that are software based, further investment in hardware platforms, and then the way that they deal with that internally financially, whether it's a bulk buy of hardware or it's a SaaS solution. I think those topics particularly the SaaS piece is starting to become more relevant in the automation space. I worked in as I mentioned in the Siemens digital industry software where they made that SaaS transition a few years back, and it really changed the way the customers their buying behaviors. Right. I'm not sure it's going to play out the same way in the automation world. I think that's still something to be seen.
Yeah, and it's a tough question, right? I think for everyone. Like I said, reflecting on some of the questions that I have gotten, I almost see like a spectrum, right? On one side, someone's looking to get value almost immediately or as quickly as possible, versus other organizations come to you and pretty much say that we know that our data is so siloed, that we're so far behind, that it's going to take 2 3 years, and then once we get there, there's sort of like, or I guess the expectation, right? I think nobody knows what the future is going to hold. The expectation is that there's going to be the switch that flips, and now we can leverage again AI solutions across the entire organization because we have spent so much time and effort building up to it. But in any case, I think it's just an interesting thought and perspective to have for a lot of these conversations. Dave, what are your thoughts?
Absolutely. I agree. They're interesting thoughts and perspectives, and I think Lewis, you set us up really well for one of my most favorite questions of the episode. Definitely putting you guys on the spot of predicting the future. So, I guess where do you think the industrial AI, this wave of applications and implementation, what do you think it's going to look like in 2 to 3 years?
Oh, 2 to 3 years. I was thinking a little bit further out than that.
Okay.
But I think in the next 2 to 3 years, you're going to see them starting to embrace AI technology, but I think probably seeing LLMs become more prevalent in the manufacturing space. I would like to see the initial systems of multi agent environments starting to come into play. I think that's probably reasonable expectation in the next 2 to 3 years.
Okay, I appreciate that. See, I thought you were going to say you couldn't guess that far out,
No.
because I refuse to guess more than tomorrow. So I appreciate that. I think that that's a very good prediction. Brian, same question to you. What do you think the landscape looks like in the next 2 to 3 years?
Yeah, I think that's mainly shaped by what I'm working on constantly with my team, and that's really kind of getting the data that customers have in order. And so I think I see a big push for that right now. So 2025, 2026, a lot of our customers are just trying to get that because they know in 2 to 3 years, they're going to be wanting to get to this place where they can use AI. And so for the next 2 years, we're probably going to be trying to tie a lot of their systems just to get there. And so that's where I see it is really just a whole aggregation of customers' data and getting that to a place where it's shaped out to where your finance teams can start seeing what is actually happening in the field and seeing how much downtime is costing them. You're able to now see what's in inventory real time because everything is moving at the same time. Your executives are having a top-down view of the whole company and having analytics across finance and operations. And so that's my hope. That's what I would want to see is kind of starting to see companies kind of having that visualization of their company using AI because the data is in order for them to actually see that.
I love that. I hope we get there within the next 2 to 3 years. Sitting here on this side of the screen, it seems like we've got a long way to go to get there. And I'm already tired for all of the work that we've done in 2 to 3 years. But I do hope we get there. I love that very much. Thank you. Louis, coming back to you, looking for some career advice. Typically, we say if someone is kind of early or mid-career, what's the best career advice that you would give them today?
As I mentioned kind of early on, my focus is helping the customers, helping people. I would recommend they find an area to work in that they're passionate about, something that they can really invest their time in, and that's important to them. I look at this technology and solutions more as a tool to help the customer. But I think the best thing that they could do is find an area that they're driven to work in and go further. And it doesn't matter what that is. It could be an area in automation technology on the business side, and build out your path, your career path on that direction.
Absolutely. I like that. I like that a lot. That is particularly good advice because the next X number of years are going to go by really fast for everyone. Brian, same question to you. Career advice, someone kind of early, middle career. What do you wish that you would have known?
No, yeah, I agree with what Louis said. I would kind of put that focus a little bit more on the technical side of things of kind of what I'm seeing and what we're needing. And if everybody is talking about AI and how we shape that, I would say for all you developers out there, how do we go from making this a simple solution through Python, and how do we start working that on the back end? I'm going to do a little pitch here for Rust because Caleb would love me if I started mentioning that and started improving our systems. And so I hope you heard that because that is something I see that we're needing. We're needing something that is improving our software and making it a faster, more solid system. As people are using Claude and building up their own applications. Like, how are we hardening that? Having people that realize that that's going to be a need someday. But yeah, I mean, I would always encourage anybody to really just be truthful to yourself and understand like what you're actually good at. If you're going in engineering, but you like being on the social side and talking and being in front of customers, being a forward-facing engineer and kind of getting that experience in front of customers, that is something that I would have wished I would have focused on a little bit more in my younger years, is not really focused on just deploying all the time, but really listening to the customer and understanding what they're needing. Because it's easy to just take your mind away and just install something for a customer instead of just building up that relationship.
Absolutely. No, I think all fantastic advice. Thank you both so much for that. Next, we're looking for a book or some content recommendation. Brian, I think we'll come back to you first. What do you have for us today?
Yeah, so I recently got the Crossing the Chasm book. I've been going through that. I think, a lot of the material, a lot of the content within this book relates to my scope of work. There's a couple of the things that we talked about today that I wanted to kind of bring up. It's kind of a bowling pin view of a project and just targeting what you want to do for a customer first, what you want to focus on first, and then the chasm itself. And I would say crossing the chasm is all about building trust, and we've talked about trust quite a bit. You have evidence pilots, repeatability. That's exactly why we invest so much in proof of concepts and initial phases. And so that's where my team builds up trust and really kind of crossing that chasm. And so building up my ideas around that has been helpful. I would really recommend that book to anybody that's working closely with customers and trying to figure out how to do that. What's the best approach to delivering a solution and being a lifelong partner with your customers?
I like that. I think that is a fantastic recommendation. Louis, it's kind of a tough recommendation to go follow up, but we will ask.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm gonna go a little bit different direction here. I would recommend Extreme Ownership. This kind of focuses more on the leadership, team building side. How to build successful teams. Really, focusing on outcomes, and he's got the book there. Awesome.
He does. I'm expecting him to just rip it in half.
Right. Absolutely. Understanding what the mission is. I mean, just as we're trying to get technology to integrate and cooperate, we really got to get focused on the teams that are delivering this technology to be integrative and collaborative. Simple things like understanding communication plans, having a plan of execution, understanding what the priorities are, and then really empowering the teams that are doing this work to go execute it. Right. And I think just some of the simple concepts in that book are things that a lot of people overlook, a lot of leaders overlook. And it's not just about the leaders. You can lead from any position in your team or organization, right? And I guess just at the end of the day, taking accountability for what's happening and solving the challenges. And I think that book can take you a long way in your career, regardless of what area you work in.
Absolutely. I think both fantastic. Recommendations. Thank you. Thank you both. Now a new question that we've got for this year that we're trialing out. We're looking for an interesting idea or innovation. I generally like to phrase it, if we can remove all the constraints of physics and all the constraints of money and anything like that. What sort of idea or innovation would you like to see, or would you be interested in seeing within the space? Louis, are you okay if we come back to you?
Yeah, sure. Ooh, that's an interesting one. I've been thinking about that quite a bit. I think some of the cool innovations that I've seen lately that I would love to see go a lot further are
Mhm.
automated automated humanoid systems. Interacting with automation systems. It's kind of a tangent off of okay, we want to automate stuff, run systems, lights out factories, but there's always areas where we need people to be involved, and then you bring in
Mhm.
this concept of automated humanoids interacting with those systems. I would love to see some great innovation in that area, and what that could look like.
Hmm,
Absolutely.
interesting.
Absolutely. I think that's interesting. Brian, coming back to you with an interesting innovation, or something you'd like to see, and I'm hopefully it's not like Rust version 2, just for Caleb.
No, no. I think for me, it's a little bit more of a fun idea because I'm always interested in outer space, and so
Mhm.
I would love to see someone really kind of working towards, and I know there are people are, of how we start traveling through space faster and getting to places safer, just to explore new things out there. I'm always fascinated with things out there and wanting to understand more, and so that's something that I hope we get to see in our lifetime of really getting to go a little deeper out there into space, and what value can we find from rocks out there, right?
I
Interesting.
like that. It feels like we're almost listening to a Star Trek pitch 60 years ago.
Yeah.
But but I like it very much. Thank you guys both for that. Last question is how can our listeners reach out? Who are you guys looking to connect with? Should people connect with you on LinkedIn? What sort of conversations are you having? We'll start with you, Louis. One last time, please.
Yeah, no, yeah, this is a challenging one. I'm not real big on the social media side of it. I do have a LinkedIn profile that you guys can reach out and we can connect on. It's not well built out, so don't expect anything too amazing there. Um, yeah, so
That is not a problem. I will say if people are interested in having a conversation with at least Lewis, if they reach out to us, we will make the appropriate connections, or at
I
least we will
appreciate
ask
that.
in order to go ahead and make the appropriate connections. I guess Brian, same thing for you. Are there any particular conversations you're looking to have? How can our listeners help?
Yeah, no, I mean, I kind of sit in between, Lewis's pre-sales team, sales team, and our transfer team, and so I have kind of a view of what happens at the beginning and what we need at the end, and so I'm always happy to get customers, potential customers, connected to the right people, whether that's Lewis or more people on our sales team. But also, looking at partners who wants to
Mhm.
partner up with Siemens and getting them connected to our transfer team, and finding a skill set that matches things that we actually need and what we're seeing customers are needing. And so those are always areas of interest for me. I mean, I was an integrator for many years, and so I know what that looks like, and I also know what value that can add to our customers. A lot more flexibility most times, and so yeah, always interested, happy to talk to anybody. LinkedIn is probably the best place to get with me. I don't know if we have a direct Siemens hotline that's going to call me, right? So if you have a
Not
Siemens,
yet.
you
Not
can.
yet. Caleb's hacking away right now to go put it on all of the Siemens websites. Just your personal cell phone number,
Yeah,
Brian.
I bet.
But
I bet.
Brian, Lewis, thank you guys so much for this awesome conversation. And everyone, thank you so much for joining. We had a bunch of really great conversations in the chat talking about different AI applications, and more. So everyone, thank you so much for listening and joining in. Again, thank you to Siemens for sponsoring this episode. If you guys are going to be at Prove It, make sure to stop by the Siemens booth, of which I don't remember the number, but Vlad is going to go put it in the show notes in the chat. But please feel free to go ahead and stop by the Prove It booth. Brian will be there for one day. You guys will see Vlad and I floating around over the entire time. So please feel free to come and say hi to all of us. If you're not going to be there, don't worry. Vlad and I have 3 streams, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, that we're going to do as long as we have voices. And as I told these guys backstage, I'm not sure my voice is going to make it till Friday afternoon, but we're certainly going to go ahead and give it a go. Having said that, follow along for all that awesome Prove It content coming out from us, some more Prove It content post-show, and I think we're going to go jump into an industrial AI application or a theme at some point in 6 weeks when we come back from all of this. And so we're super excited for that. If you guys have made it this far, please make sure to follow Brian. Don't follow Lewis. Follow Brian. Follow Vlad and myself in Manufacturing Hub so you guys can stay up to date on all of the awesome things that we've got going on. If you are on YouTube, please feel free to go ahead and hit the like button. I will make note, because several people have asked, YouTube is the best place to go watch the post streams for this, because it's much easier to go ahead and find. You can just search Manufacturing Hub and our episode number, or the folks that you're looking to listen to. If you guys are in podcast format, you're awesome. If we've somehow got this out during the week of Prove It, please come join us during the live streams. If we don't, go rewatch the live streams, because those will be super fun.